So you're saying we're not being inclusive to white people enough?
I would never say that, but I would say it without pushback. Yeah. Oh man, my people are gonna kill me for that.
So if you don't like it, then fuck you. That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say.
So, I'm scared. I'm really scared.
Welcome to In Other Words, the show where you don't choose your side, the side chooses you. Each episode, 6 participants draw a random stance, for or against, before hearing the prompt. Whether they agree or not, they have to speak on it. The results are a mix of bold takes, surprising insights, and some real moments. Today's theme is, are we becoming too politically correct, or are we finally getting it right? Let's get into it. Today's prompts are: 1. Does political correctness help us grow or just silence us? 2. Is representation in media fixing anything or just good PR? 3. Has allyship become more about image than impact? 4. Are we more inclusive or just better at writing disclaimers? 5. Should you lose your job over something you tweeted 10 years ago? 6. Are we raising a generation of kind humans or terrified overthinkers? And 7. Is it still free speech if you get cancelled for saying it?
Political correctness does not help us grow. I just had to kind of think of that, just because the point of the fact is, I'm in my 30s and, I try to stay away from all the political views and everything that's around so it doesn't basically guide me in a direction on how to live my life. And now, being a mother that has a 15-month-old, I would not want him to go on social media and follow the rules, in a sense. So it doesn't help us grow. It does silence us, just because we are minorities. Like, I'm mixed with Asian and Black, and so is he. So for him being a Black boy growing up in this society, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to silence him. So I am so against that. And I think that people like myself who are minorities need to find a new avenue and a new wave, and not have that be, how do I say, like a cloud over their cage in a way, if that makes sense.
So I do think it helps us grow because as a person who wasn't born in the West, who came here some time ago, a long time ago, doesn't matter. I do feel like it helps grow because when you see these conversations online, even like in a vacuum and not directed to specific people, they do help you question things, almost like, why is it happening? Why do these people think this way? And it helps to learn more things. Like, before I came to Canada, I had no idea about Indigenous rights of Canadians. I was just like, just never, I grew up in Kazan, so it's like just really far away, and just never crossed my mind. So when I came here and, kind of started looking online, and they helped me to kind of learn more and almost grow in that sense. So I became more aware of what's happening around me and about Canadian history in general.
Yeah, absolutely does not help us grow. I think it's part of the gatekeeping. That's the problem of who's doing the idea of political correctness, whether it's political parties, media companies, whoever it is. The establishment of an idea of political correctness, I think, is a problem. I think giving people the ability to speak their truth. We were talking about freedom of speech, but there's also the consequences that come with freedom of speech. And I think if you're going to put yourself out there and be someone that's going to kind of push back against that status quo, you should be able to receive the feedback that you deserve. And I think political correctness limits that, because people walk on eggshells and don't want to take those steps that might piss people off, that might make people feel uncomfortable. And if we're not uncomfortable, we're not growing.
That's a good point. But I would say, for me personally, my personal experience, I come from a radio background. And I think for like news sites, and I think for sources where people are going for information, they should remain unbiased. Yes, say your opinion, but I think it shouldn't be through like big media sites. I think it should be your own personal pages, or, your own expression wherever you're putting that. But I think where like news sites, news websites, even like news social media pages you see nowadays, I think those should remain unbiased, just for the sake of not putting opinions into news. Okay, hello, my name is Devaney Jasmine. I make YouTube videos, I like do social media stuff, so when we're talking about this, my heart sank to my ass. I am scared to speak and like, I don't want to get canceled, so I feel like I'm constantly tiptoeing with my words a little bit, which I think is making me not so strong in this debate. But yeah, so I'm scared. I'm really scared.
The problem with political correctness, though, is that it gives the illusion of growth and change. So we see these things on the surface, like we have unbiased, quote unquote, news sites that we can tap into, or we have representation in media, but it doesn't actually lead to it doesn't actually lead to systemic change. And so on the surface, it's like, oh, we've changed the name that we call someone because we decided it was politically incorrect to call someone by that name, but we haven't changed the underlying policy. And so we have this really polite culture where we're like, oh, we're all scared and we're stepping on eggshells and we're like, oh, I can't call you that. But like the underlying policy, and like you brought up Indigenous people in Canada, like you don't call them Native or Indian because it's politically incorrect, but the Indian Act policies are still in place. Like those still guide and shape the country. And so for us to not address the underlying thing, political correctness actually like is like whitewashing on top of what's actually going on. And so I think it's definitely stopping us from growing, and we need to like be messy and like not be afraid of like saying the wrong thing, because like words matter, but like at the end of the day, like policies actually shape lives, and I'd rather someone say the wrong word and mess up and have a real conversation, and so we can get to the root of the issue.
Yeah, agreed. Can I also say one thing? When you had mentioned the indigenous rights, they silenced the indigenous people. Like when it came out on the news about all these children's bodies that were buried, they were silenced for years and years and years because they couldn't speak out. So political correctness, you are right, is a little facade, and they're putting it out there like, yeah, everything is great. Don't call them this, that, and the other. But then it's still there in the background. So I think that people need to be more aware. And, you know, like it is for minorities like myself, you need to understand before you go to these social websites and check out people's opinions, even though they're, you know, biased. We don't know at the end of the day. It's like everyone kind of has to, how do I say it? Like do their own research and educate themselves to better understand so they can actually stand up and have their own opinion, right? So I like that. Even if you do say something the wrong way, be messy about it and have a real conversation. We're all human. Oh, and of course, we're Canadians, so we're very polite. So that's just going to come with it being anyways. People are going to, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to call you that. But, you know, that's just how it is. It is what it is. Hi, my name is Katrina, and I was with the team Against. Political correctness is silencing us 1,000%. You know, I'm heavily involved in social media and media in general. And it is true because sometimes you have to tread water carefully. You're on eggshells on certain things that you can and cannot say. You have to have a certain image. And with me, you know, I've put on this image of who I am as a person, but there is a realness of me that's missing. So having to be politically correct is very hard to juggle. But also at the same time, I kind of want to say, fuck it. Because like we are freaking human. We have emotions and feelings and thoughts and opinions that at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's coming from your brain. So if you don't like it, then fuck you. That's all I got to say. That's all I got to say.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I think like, honestly, obviously it's always good to have your opinion. Like that's always necessary. I think in your personal life, yeah, go do whatever you want. But I think in media and everything, it kind of acts like a shield. It almost tells you what the right thing and what the wrong thing is to say. So like people at least have an idea to, with the cancel culture and everything, you have to be politically correct. Like if you're in media and if you are on social media or whatever, like I'm going into media as well, like I need to know what the right thing is to say. Doesn't matter if I believe it or not. Mm-hmm. The thing is that I'm not going to have a career. Like I can sit here and argue and be like, yes, let's be messy, but I'm not going to have a career if I go out and, you know, and I like state whatever opinion I've got. I grew up in Surrey. Like, oh my God, the jokes that we make, like people, like we cannot say that anywhere. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're like, I don't know, the jokes and then like the way that we talk to each other, but there's like this common understanding that like we're just kidding around like teenagers, like, you know what I mean? It's just we're being messy, we're doing all those hard talks, but I can't go out and do that with strangers, or I can't go do that with my employer or employee or even with my coworkers, because I'm like, you're probably gonna end up reporting me. So I think that I just need, it's kind of like rules and regulations that I need to know so that I don't end up like ruining my life over, because it's so fast, man. It is so fast that lives get ruined over like one misstated opinion that doesn't agree with the mass majority. So the way that I grew up, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna change the world. I'm gonna do so much good in this world. But then I realized that I'm not really allowed to say everything that I wanna say, or like the way that I think, or like my culture has been, or like my life has been, or my circumstances have been. But then I said, you know what, I can change some things. I can maybe go fight for representation. That's a politically correct thing to go do, right? So there are still changes. Like I can't sit on the sidelines and go, I want to make change, and then not contribute even some part of it. Like even something little that I can contribute. I can fight for girls, I can fight for my culture, I can fight for representation. So there are still so many things that I can fight for, and I can still have that out in the media. So that's what I'm doing. Like, you know, that's the goal. Okay, great.
So I just want to quickly add, I know we're probably coming close, but as a student of radio and TV, I deliberately did not pursue a career because of that kind of cowardice. And media companies are cowards. If they did what they were supposed to do and did the things that they were supposed to say, Gaza would not be in this current condition. We wouldn't have tens of thousands of babies being killed. Free Palestine, by the way. But I think the idea of media dictating what we can and can't say when they're being dictated to by corporate interests is absolutely laughable. But I think we have a long way to go before we say things that matter.
Hi, my name is Rafael Jazin, and I was in a team for political correctness. I feel like I still kind of largely stand on the point I defended. The notion of like political correctness and kind of cultural sensitivity in general, I think, will be different from place to place and through like even like through social circle to social circle. So I feel like when we look for, you know, people from other countries and or even like people from different life experience, we have to account for that as well. So we have to understand the place where they come from, and maybe they use like the words or even have some sort of opinions which we might consider problematic, or like might be considered problematic in Canada. But as long as people kind of willing to learn and listen to each other, I think it should be okay.
I think it's just good PR. I mean, honestly, I think like companies are, you know, doing diversity hires. They're putting up like diverse people up on posters and promotional social media posts. But I don't think that real change is really happening. I mean, let's look at the biggest thing that you can be: a prime minister, president, a CEO, and how many of those are women or people of color? Like, not many. So real change definitely is not happening. Like, it's, again, like with the political correctness thing, it's just a little shield that they've got going on top. But I think it's just for like getting some profit, getting some more customers, targeting. Like, this is literally like actual marketing like strategy. When we learn, it's like target as many people as you can, get those groups in here, you know?
I don't agree with I don't agree with that at all. I would say that representation, especially in media, is, I mean, yes, I agree there could be more change, especially with, you know, politicians and laws and stuff. But I think a lot of it does start with seeing someone who looks like you on TV, seeing someone that represents a part of you. Like, for a long time, I really didn't understand this, like what it felt to be represented on TV. But like a year ago, there's that TV show, I don't know if anyone's seen it, Late Bloomers. It's on Crave. It's like a new TV show. And there's a character who's half brown, half white. And I'm half brown, half white. And I've never in my life seen that. And I was like, oh my God, like this is exactly what I go through. This is me. Like it felt so, I don't know, it felt like really good. So for seeing, yeah, I feel as though if you see things like on TV, if you see even like, let's say there's a president who's like a fictional president. Even if it's someone who looks somewhat similar to you, even though that's not reflecting real life, seeing it starts the seed of change.
Okay, so I do agree with you on that, but also at the same time, I kind of feel like they're fixing a problem that was there, that now they're seeing it. Because, like, once again, I'm Black. I'm half Asian, half Black. And when COVID hit and BLM occurred, Black Lives Matter, it's like they gave the Black people 15 minutes of fame. But that 15 minutes of fame continued on years now, because now you see commercials, like you said, so many commercials with people of color, and of course with the Asian culture as well, because they are targeting these markets because they know, okay, you guys need spotlight, so we're going to give it to you. But the people behind all that are people that are not of color, you know, and they're the ones that are raking in the profits, and they're bringing in these diverse families knowing, okay, you guys want to see a Black girl on a TV show so that your little Black girl can be like, I want to be like that too. But at the end of the day, she's not making that profit and that money. And the reason why I say that, I'm heavily in the media and acting industry, and I got to play my first Black character for Polly Pocket for voiceover. Before that, it was white girls that were playing Black characters, and they were the ones taking the money from us. So to me, it's a PR thing, because a lot of agencies out there are owned majority by, you know, I don't want to sound racist, but by white people. And they do look out for people of color, because they're like, you can make me money, you can make me money, you can make me money. If I have you on my team, it's going to show that I'm got a good team and I'm for the people. And it's really hard to agree with people like that, because it's just good PR. I just left an agency a year and a half ago where they just looked at me as money. They seen that I was able to go out and get these commercials and get these jobs without them. They thought, hey, I want to have you on my roster because you can double my profits, which I did. And then I decided to walk away because they weren't investing in me and my future. They were investing in their pockets. So to me, it's great. It's just PR. It's a PR blanket that they're throwing over on this world. But at the end of the day, I do agree with you too, because when you're watching a commercial or on TV and you see people that represent you, you can connect with that. And I know that is important, but people need to realize the bigger picture, because we're being played as puppets. That's how I see it, you know, unfortunately. Hi, it is Katrina, and I was against, but I do want to just point out that representation does matter. It does matter to absolutely everyone in this world. Like I said, we're all human beings of different colors, and to see us on screen and represent for us matters. But also at the same time, it also matters who's behind the screen. So a good example is Tyler Perry. He puts on a lot of representation for people of color, and he understands our struggles and he understands our background and what we've gone through, and he puts it out on the screen. And another one is 50 Cent as well, with his shows like BMF. People have came through the struggle and they know what's real, so other people can relate as well. So representation matters. I just hope that in the future more people understand it and want to represent us as minorities, so that we're no longer minorities and we are above rising.
I've never seen my ethnic group on TV represented anywhere in media or otherwise. As someone that's an Indo-Fijian that does hip hop music and does stand-up comedy, I've never seen it. So for me, I feel like being in these positions, I have been the person where younger kids would be like, yo, you're Fijian, you rap? It's crazy. So I know what that feels like to be sparked, and I know what it feels like to spark somebody. So I feel like without those sparks, people don't go anywhere. Like, you know, Tupac said it best, I may not change the world, but I'll spark the mind of the person that does. And I feel like this is one of those steps where without the representation, a lot of us don't exist. What's good, y'all? My name is Arif. I was for representation. I do believe that it's a token gesture. I don't think that we're anywhere close to what representation really means. And I feel like because of the idea of representation, people have started to fit themselves into boxes as to what they believe they should represent. And it removes all individuality. It removes any of what they actually really believe themselves to be. So as symbolic as representation can be, as you know, when you look at TV, movies, whatever you watch, whatever you take in, and you see people that look like you, think like you, resemble you in ways, it's such a simplified version of what the individual is. You don't really get a full idea of what representation really means. So I would say, as an individual, be your damn self, do exactly how you feel like you should move in the world, and that is how you spark the real representation as a whole person, because other people can see you be like, I match more what that guy looks like than the dude on TV. So do you.
That's a great way to explain it, like sparking the mind of someone else. Like, I hear you with the commercial thing, and it's just like they're placing representation on screen and it doesn't reflect who's actually behind the camera. But there's representation in so many different ways. Like, I'm a filmmaker, and when I went to film school, they handed us a list of the 100 best films, and they were all directed by men, like every single one of them. And then one of my mentors was like, you should direct your own work. And I was like, oh, I couldn't, me. And then a couple years later, there was all this media highlighting female directors. And suddenly I was like, wait a minute. Of course I can do this. Also, I did it when I was a kid, and I like forgot because it wasn't reflected back to me. So it's so important for us to see that, because then we can believe it. But it's empty, to your point. Like, if it's not actually translating into like real, if it's not real people there, if it's just to sell like paper towels, then it's like, My name is Kelly, and I was for representation. And I wanted to say that Minraj made a really great point with Barbie, because before Barbie, there were only baby dolls for girls. Adult dolls didn't exist. And so it's unfortunate that the Barbie doll became this emblem of whiteness and of completely unrealistic beauty standards, but it also was a step forward, giving little girls something to imagine into that didn't exist before. So representation under colonial capitalism is totally a double-edged sword. It's not for or against, but that's what we're here to argue. It is moving the dial forward while also perpetuating the status quo. And so I do think that you don't have to see things to become them. We can dream bigger than that, but it is a huge help for little kids and for adults and people of any age to be able to see themselves reflected and know that that's possible for them too.
So representation is a big thing. It can vary from, showing scientists doing scientists from like underrepresented group on TVs, or like news anchors, but also it's a fictional characters. So I feel like my example is more specific about like fictional stories and things like that. But I feel like almost in a way, a lot of well-meaning behind-the-scenes people, including writers, producers, directors, etc., they want to include as many groups as they can to almost lure people in, but they don't really give the same amount of treatment to character story or character development. Or even if you look at reality TV, they might highlight the stories of, more traditional protagonists, like white straight couples, for example. And I see it a lot, and especially like when, these people are like underrepresented group, like POC, people of color and queer people, and all this stuff is there, but it's not really well thought about. It almost feels like it's just there to be in it and not to actually represent anything. And also in a lot of ways, even if the stories are there, they're more like model minority myth almost. Like if you have a queer relationship, they have to be like perfect with no flaws. If it's some person of color, they can have no flaws because, it's just, we're showing a good side. But for me as a viewer, it's almost always interesting to see some sort of conflict, some sort of characters overcoming obstacles, discovering something about themselves. So I feel like if you don't put enough thought and effort into creating this type of stories, it's almost not worth doing them. Hi, my name's Rafael. I was in Against team, so I do stand by my points again. And I feel like everyone else also brought up the point that like it's almost like a double-edged sword. And so it's not just black and white in a way that, for me, even like for me anecdotally, I can't pull statistics from, my pocket. But for me anecdotally, seeing, queer representation on TV growing up, and especially I still remember this YouTube video I heard where the woman spoke my native language, Kazakh. So, and she was an open lesbian, and for me it was the first time when I ever saw that. And even though it was like such a small moment, for me it felt like, you can be both, like you could be Kazakh and queer in a way. And so while I do think like in a lot of cases like representation feels like tokenism and it feels very flat, it still can in a way be with almost very impactful in a way on certain people. Like it was impactful for me for sure. So that's what I wanted to say.
That sparked something in me, guys. So I think on media and like in films, they represent society. unless society doesn't actually look like that. So you can go ahead and show like a black president, but if the systemic like places aren't like those pillars aren't put in society, that girl's gonna grow up thinking that she can do that, and then she's gonna go out in the world and go, oh, I actually can't. Like this, there isn't things put in society where I can actually achieve that. Like they'll put you in, but if Barbie, okay, Barbie's like a huge, we all girls grew up being like, oh my God, this is the body type, this is the, and then Barbie movie came out and we were like, oh, they were trying to show girls that we can be anything, astronauts and nurses and all this, but none of us ever actually really got that message, right? We all just kind of just saw this as like this little toy to play with, and it for generations, we all just believed, oh my God, this is how I should look like. So I don't know, man, if it doesn't reflect society in reality, if those pillars aren't up there, I don't care what it shows me on screen, because you know what, I'm gonna think that I can do all those things, and I'm gonna find out that I can't, you know, or I'm not allowed to, I don't know. Okay, I'm Manraj, and I was against it. I said like representation needs to do much more, like it's just good PR, but it's only because we're arguing black and white here, but there is of course a gray scale. Like I do agree that representation matters. Like Justine, thank you so much for creating a beautiful show, and like Lily, I love you. But I just think more needs to be done. I think it's very on the surface. So it's a bit of a gray, but I love that we're still representing it. I just want the system to match up and to put down those pillars so that the girl, that little like Indian girl that's like dreaming that can actually go out in the world and do it.
Well, I agree with what you're saying, that things aren't great behind the scenes and there needs to be a lot of improvement. But I also think there is a line with when you see someone like, let's say, of color or of your background on media, or let's say a TV show, that job, even just seeing it, like even if you go out into the world, that person thought that they could. What's stopping them from going and becoming the next president? I mean, I know the system's not great right now, but even it's the spark that we were talking about, putting the seed in of maybe I can because that person did it.
Right.
Hey, it's Stephanie Jasmine, and although yes, representation can be very gray, I think that media representation is never a bad thing. Like to see someone that is different, I think that can always be a good thing. That's always going to connect to somebody out there. Like that show I watched, oh my God, I felt it in my soul. I was like, Neil, you and me, we're the same person. So, thanks. I think at times it can be very, very performative. I mean, people will be an ally, for cameras, on social media, when it's to show someone else, but a lot of times they're not allies behind closed doors when no one's watching, when it really counts and it really matters.
Coming from a generation that was not for allyship at all, I think it's massive, especially with communities that were truly underrepresented. It's like the LGBTQ plus community, Indo-Fijian communities, any community that's traditionally marginalized. Without allyship, we would never have even known that these communities were facing a lot of the challenges that they were facing. So without the idea of allyship, we're just all sitting here throwing stones and no one really knows what they should be thinking or who they should be representing or what people are being marginalized actively on a regular basis. We would never see it.
I feel like while, we can't say who's real ally, who's not, because we can't get into people's heads. I feel like in a way, like socially, people do want to perceive us socially, how to say it, socially communicative. So they do want, in a lot of cases, be allyship for almost everyone. But also the truth is like things like, activism and kind of being for good things, quote unquote, they require some sort of education, some sort of effort. And I don't really believe you can be there for everyone. You can have good intentions, but I feel like real allyship involves some sort of like activism, and activism is very hard to do. And it requires a lot of effort, a lot of unpaid labor. So in a way, I feel like you can't be ally for everyone. And if you call yourself that, you have to play the part as well. And if you don't do it, maybe don't, kind of just say you're a nice person, I guess.
Yeah, because where are we drawing the line of what it means to be an ally? Like maybe you're willing to be an ally to your friend because they're your friend and you like them. But like, what about the person working on the other side of the world under horrific conditions and you continue to buy that product? And so allyship, it's kind of like representation in that way, where it's like sometimes, yes, it is making a change, but it can be empty and hollow underneath if it's not actually if you're not actually making an impact with your buying power and with your daily choices.
I think people are empty and hollow, which is why allyship seems fickle. And I feel like if people did a better job of representing themselves and who they were, they could be real allies to communities that need it, as opposed to just being, oh, I'm going to be nice because I was told to be nice. I should be nice because of this. I think if people do the work individually to figure out why they should be allies, then allyship matters in a real way, as opposed to just being this performative.
But are
flavor of
people
the
doing
day.
the work?
Are people doing the work? People are not doing the work. Absolutely not doing the work. And I think this is a huge part of it, is trying to figure out where you stand amongst these things and figuring out how you can actually play a role without being performative.
I knew, like, even the people that are watching the video, that's like the first thing that's going through their head. They go, oh, like, you can just perform it. Like, no one's really gonna know. But the thing is, allyship is more about the people that are being supported than it is about the people doing the supporting. I don't know, we're throwing like a feminist rave, man, and we're like, you know what, females are amazing. And you come out and do that, it doesn't matter if you're a nice guy or if you're not, or in your head and you're going home and you're like really, really like you're sexist and you're watching Andrew Tate. Like, I don't care because you know what? You showed up for me, even in a fake way, because to me it looks like, oh my God, there's all these people that are supporting me. Mm-hmm. And so I don't care if you actually think like that or if you don't think like that. What matters to me is that you're there.
But all of that support doesn't translate into change. Like, I'm thinking about that meme that went around for Gaza. Like, it was like 1 million people strong of some AI image. And like, I saw all these people posting it who'd never posted anything else. Right. And then did they go to a march? Did they email their politician? Did they stop buying like something from the boycott list? Yeah. No, they just posted a meme.
No, I did a whole speech in university about like, what is it, keyboard warriors, like activism. It's like, it's totally fake. You can, like, I see so many of my friends posting about Palestine. Do they know half of what's going on? Do they research on it? No. But the thing is, because they've posted it, maybe I'll go and research about it. Like, raising awareness is the first step to creating any kind of change. And if you're not capable of doing anything else, if you're not capable of donating, if you're not, like, you know, there's nothing else that you can do. You can't show up there or like help them out in any way, send essentials, nothing. You're at least posting it so that somebody else who can help is seeing it and they might.
But is that just keeping us comfortable in the status quo? Those of us in the Western world who can just post a meme to relieve the tension, because it's horrifying, right? And I feel bad and I want to do something. Oh, I posted a meme. Yeah. Now I don't have to think about it anymore. Now I don't actually have to do.
For sure. But again, it's not about you. I don't care what you think. You posted it. That's going to create change. Even if it creates like a little bit change, even if I see it and I go, I'm going to donate $1,000 to this, you know, or like I'm going to send essentials. It doesn't matter why you posted it. It doesn't matter. You did it. You did that step, because actions speak louder than words. You can think whatever, your thoughts can be whatever, but you did the thing. And that matters.
I think it also forces us to gives us the opportunity to hold people accountable. If they do claim allyship, having this conversation open gives us the opportunity to say, well, are you really an ally? Do you really do the things that you claim to do? And if we don't even start the conversation, we can't hold people accountable. We can't even bring this up without there being a line for us to be like, okay, well, you know these things are bad. Where do you stand on them? Why don't you know about these things? And it gives us the opportunity to actually make people stand by their beliefs. What's good, y'all? It's Arif again. I do definitely believe allyship is performative. I can only give my own personal examples. I thought I was someone that stood up for women's rights. I thought I was somebody that was a feminist until I had a woman call me out directly and say, yes, but you still benefit from the patriarchy on a daily basis. And if I didn't have that call out, I wouldn't have taken the time to look at myself and be like, well, how many different ways do I benefit from patriarchy? And it takes that self-reflection for you to pick apart the things that you are actively living while proclaiming these beliefs. So I think allyship comes with a lot more than just saying that you're on the side of something. You got to do a hell of a lot of work to make sure that you are actively on the side of the things that you claim to be supporting.
to sound racist? See, you already know what's coming, right? Like I'm clearly gonna say something racist. So we are writing disclaimers. That doesn't mean that that's gonna be the right way to go. Like I can't just say I'm not gonna say something and then say it and then expect you not to get hurt, you know?
Okay, piggybacking off that, it's kind of like we're giving you a warning though. So we're saying, hey, just wanted to let you know you may get a rash, just letting you know if you use this cream in that type of sense. Right. But you're saying it to a group of people. So you're letting them know, hey, this may be said, but you can't get mad at us. You can't sue us.
I feel like inclusivity is just one of those buzzwords that we've added to the vocabulary to make people feel like we're doing something. I don't think it does anything. I don't think it has included anybody in anything, because if it was inclusivity, we wouldn't have to define these groups. We wouldn't have to put ourselves into these places where, oh, you represent that community, that community, that community. Inclusivity would be considering us all humans, and we're not even close to anywhere near calling ourselves humans. We can't differentiate gender. We can't differentiate race, ethnicity, religious groups. Not even close.
I mean, the question was, are we getting more inclusive? And I would argue we're definitely getting more inclusive. I think of this year's Met Gala as an example. The theme was Black Dandy. And like, you could argue that was hollow, but it was inclusive. In fact, it was centering. And I think we can actually look, unfortunately, at the people who are pushing back against inclusivity and their rising anger as proof that things are changing in an inclusive direction.
I feel like inclusivity sometimes is just like, as Arif said before, it's more about just kind of not humanizing people enough. They're there almost as a symbol, sort of like a stand-ins for some idea. Yeah, like a prop, like almost like a tool to like tell something, but not as people itself included. Like I do have friends who self-admittedly, by their words, are some sort of almost like, I can't know for sure. Just a disclaimer. Oh no.
That was good.
That's good. No, that's a good one.
I respect that.
But who are kind of self-admittedly almost like just there to be there, almost like a token in their represented group. And while yes, they're making money, which is good, but they're not being treated fairly. If it's like a work environment, they're being overworked, or they're just like they're on. You know how like when you go to like university, there is like a commercial of like, oh, your diverse group of friends sits on a lawn. It almost feels like that, but in reality, it's not. You get less opportunities, less stuff like that. So it feels like you're just there as a prop and not as a real person. Hi, this is Rafael. I do stand by the opinion we shouldn't settle on crumbs for whatever you feel like your group is represented or underrepresented. We should settle for crumbs, we should advocate for better inclusivity and things like that. But what kind of leads me to kind of remembering about like queer representation in media. So while it was in almost all of ways, even if we look back to the 2000s, which wasn't that long ago, 2000s, early 2010s, yeah, like it wasn't ideal. A lot of people found it like very shallow and offensive, but still with like very shallow offensive, well, with shallow representation of, in a lot of ways, of queer people, specifically like gay men back then, it did pave a way forward to current representation, where we have shows like Euphoria, which includes like a love triangle between like woman of color, trans woman, and some white guy, but it's still there, and I'm sure like in 10 years people will look back at it and be like, okay, that's not it right now, but we're not 10 years ahead, we're still now, and every small thing matters, and it builds into a bigger picture over time.
I mean, honestly, if we're talking about the Met Gala, like Met Gala invited Diljit Dosanjh, they invited a bunch of Indian creators. Did they get that same camera time? No. The camera turned away to like the speakers and like the host as soon as Diljit walked the carpet, and he had like the most gorgeous outfit, and I'm not trying to be biased, maybe a little. I loved his outfit, but like he walked in and like all of social media was enraged. They were like, his outfit was the best. Why did you turn away the cameras? And until social media went crazy, being like, give him more press time, give him more camera time. You're not writing enough about him. You're not posting about him. That's when they finally did the little poll, which was like, who was the best dressed? He won it, right? Because of like people and like holding them accountable, like social media is doing that. So yeah, we're just writing disclaimers. We're inviting these influencers to be there. We're inviting minorities to be there, but are we giving them the time that they deserve? Are we giving them that attention? Or yeah, it just becomes a token.
As great as his outfit was, it wasn't Black dandyism, that's for sure. But yeah, Beautiful outfit, didn't fit the theme at all. But yeah, like so, I think we're kind of going back to this thing here of where we put people, and I feel like inclusivity wouldn't be putting people in boxes. Inclusivity would be we're all one, we're all equal, and I get it. We're far away from that. But if inclusivity is going to be the buzzword that we use, we're failing.
I mean, we do live in boxes. That's a reality, right? Like we can dream of this utopia in this world where we're all one, but that's like never going to happen. As long
Don't say never.
Well, no, I mean like the concept of oneness. Like I think that would, not to get too deep here, but that would literally mean transcending being in a body. Like as long as we're in bodies, we're living in contexts, right? And we're overwhelmingly shaped by living in a society run by cars. Like if an alien came to this planet, they'd be like, who's the boss here? Because it seems you've designed everything. And we live in our little boxes, right? And so when we look at culture and we look at the Met Gala, for example, it's like more people are being invited into the culture and showcased in the culture. So maybe the greater question is like, do we want inclusivity? Like, do we want to be invited to this table, or do we want to build a different table?
Well, and I think the people that with the loudest pushback are the ones that feel like they're not being included. And I hate to say it, but most of the media companies that are run by white people, they're the ones that are doing the most yelling and the most screaming because they have been the ones to exclude for the longest time. And now that people are using these words like inclusivity, it almost feels like they feel like they're losing something in this process of being inclusive. But if we were truly being inclusive, they wouldn't feel that. They wouldn't feel like things were being taken from them. They would feel like we're accommodating this new idea of making people feel comfortable.
So you're saying we're not being inclusive to white people enough?
I would never say that, but I would say without pushback. Yeah. Oh man, my people are gonna kill me for that. I would say if we were truly being inclusive, nobody would have pushback. Man, y'all making me hate myself. I don't believe that at all. I think inclusivity is massive, hugely beneficial to communities, hugely beneficial to society. Without inclusivity, we wouldn't know marginalized groups exist. So I was arguing against it, but I'm very for inclusivity. I feel like it drives society in a positive way, and without it, we will not ever find togetherness.
All the questions obviously haven't had the right answers. This one definitely has a right answer, and that's no, you shouldn't. But there's a grayscale if you were young. I feel like so many rappers, so many celebrities have lost their careers because they said something when they were like a young boy or a young girl, right? Like they were very young. They didn't understand the power of social media and that internet keeps everything forever. And they said something, and then now they don't have a career, even if they've grown out of it, even if they've become an ally in some way, you know what I mean? They've started supporting these amazing causes. They've done some good, real change in this world. They still end up losing their career. I think we need to give people more chances to see if they grow as a person before going, nope, you're out of here.
I think the fact that you use rapper is so wrong. Why you gotta bring hip hop into this?
I was trying to connect with you, man.
That's so cold. If you are a terrible person, you need to be thrown out. I think people come with the worst takes and say the worst things, and then go and do these tearful social media apologies, and they're garbage. And I feel like people just do this as a way to kind of like, oh, I didn't mean to say those horrible things that made everybody feel bad, but I'm a reformed person. I think if you want to be accepted back in society, you got to do the work. You got to show that you're not just some idiot who has access to a keyboard, and show that what you said was a mistake as opposed to who you really are as a person.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that, because there are times where people, and I agree with you too, when you are younger and you don't really know the power of social media, you may say something stupid, but then again, you do have a brain and a mind. So before you go and click enter that I want to post something sexist or racist, you knew it was wrong to begin with. But there are also things where, you may post something that you didn't believe in 10 years ago, and then 10 years later, your mind changed and you do believe in it. So you do have to show the work and show, hey, I'm sorry that I did this, but I'm showing the work. I'm putting myself out there that I made a mistake and I want to make it better to my community and society.
Personally, I don't think children should have access to the internet like that, at least not until that frontal cortex is fully developed. But I mean, I think everyone has said something or maybe, joked around when they were younger, and a lot of people I think are lucky that there wasn't a camera around, and they're lucky it wasn't typed out. Because if everything that you said was a teenager put out on the internet, I think we'd all be canceled right now. So I think there should be grace again. Again, like it's a scale. If you say something and you believe in it 10 years after the fact, okay, maybe you need to reevaluate. But if you're growing as a person, you've changed, you apologize, and you take strides to fix the error that you made, I don't think you should lose your job. With the exception, if it's like a regular job, I feel like if you're in a position of power or media, it's a little bit trickier because, you know, you've got an audience, you're influencing people. But let's say, like, I don't know, you're an accountant. Yeah, whatever. Are you going to stop doing, like, tax returns because you said something 10 years ago on Facebook? I don't think so. I don't know.
I think you guys are giving really generous assumptions to these tweeters. Like, oh yeah, if you go out and you change and you do better, but are these people going out and doing better? Right. Also, I feel like cancel culture is an illusion. Like, are people actually losing their jobs for tweets? I know it happens from time to time. I think it happened to like an SNL writer recently, but for the most part, like J.K. Rowling's still a billionaire, right? You know, and so wouldn't it be great if we actually held people accountable to their words and found a way to make them change? I would argue that that's not really happening and that it should. I'm Kelly, and I was arguing for people getting canceled for something they tweeted 10 years ago. And I don't agree with that. I don't believe that personally. I believe that people can change. They often don't. So there is something to holding people accountable, of course, but like people should have the opportunity to say that was wrong and I've changed. I wish there was some way to know that they actually changed, because a lot of the time it can be performative, but the whole cancel culture thing is so wishy-washy, and I really just want us to live in a culture where we're not overly policing people and we're creating systems where they can rehabilitate and grow instead of just throwing them away.
Does that speak to you as a person? Is that a part of your character? Is that who you are? Because if you're out here spouting off nonsense and you're not willing to say those things in person, you're not willing to say those things in a forum where you could be confronted, and you're just using the keyboard to pop off, then you birth people like the Andrew Tates, like the Elon Musks, like, you know, you bring up the worst personalities in the world to be able to say all kinds of horrible, encouraging things because they have hateful people that'll back them up. So I feel like, yeah, if you say some stuff that is going to hurt people, harm people, demean people, then yeah, you should lose your position of power, your position of authority, whatever it is, because that speaks to your character.
I think I would argue most hate comes out of ignorance. And if we're not giving people a chance to voice out their opinions, and if we're policing it so strictly that if someone has made a mistake, we're not giving them a chance to grow, then we are creating this illusion and everyone is going to be politically correct. And honestly, most of the people have lost jobs because what they had said back then was okay. There've been comedians on stage that have said the most racist, sexist things I've ever seen, but it was politically okay to say those things at that time. And now, society changed so quick, right? And now, like, those old ways of thinking are being brought out and put against them. But the thing is, society evolved, their thinking evolved. But if we're not giving them a chance, like, no one's gonna wanna voice out something that's different from society. We want change, we're gonna have to get uncomfortable, right? So if we're just saying like, no, like this was politically correct like back then, but it's not now, and we're gonna drag you down because of it, I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, but also there's a change that needs to happen. So for an action, there's a reaction. So if you're going to post that 10 years from now thinking that it was okay then, how do we not know 10 years from now that you're going to get canceled? And we do take accountability and we cancel that because we have to show an example that you can't believe that this is correct for the next generation to do the exact same thing.
Hey, it's Stephanie. Please don't let your kids have social media. Do not let your 10-year-old have an Instagram. PSA, because they're probably going to say or do something stupid and it might come bite them in the ass in 10 years. So please keep your kids, at least if you're going to do it, monitor their pages. Have a parent doing one of those like parent controls.
I'll speak to this as a parent of 2 kids. I believe that we are definitely raising a kinder community, more welcoming, more accepting. I also believe because of the welcoming and the acceptingness, it also makes them a little bit soft, which builds anxiety. So I feel like there's a combination of a generation that's very anxious of what they can and can't do and can't say, but also a generation understanding everybody around them also needs the same kind of care and guidance and ability to kind of grow into being themselves.
Okay, so I will agree to disagree. I am a mother. I have a 15-month-old son, and I also have a bonus child who's 7. And I honestly think we are raising terrified overthinkers. Number one, everything that we eat and we put in our body causes cancer. We have warning labels on absolutely everything. Social media saying, don't eat this, don't use the pans that have certain Teflon in there because you're going to get cancer in the next 4 or 5 years. So when you have little ones and you're policing what they can and can't put in their body, what they can and can't see and watch on TV, they're going to grow up in a bubble, not knowing what's right from wrong, but having strong parents like myself teaching them what's right and what is good to be in your body. We can have them grow up to be protected, but understanding what's right from wrong and not putting the BS into their body. So terrified overthinkers is a thing, but it depends on who is raising these children so that they can become these strong adults when they get older. So, and we are in a soft era. I don't do gentle parenting because you will get that belt. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Coming from a Filipino mom, she gave me the wooden spoon. But I think that gentle parenting shouldn't be a thing because we need to raise soldiers. We don't know what's gonna happen in the next 10, 20 years. Are robots and AI gonna take over like iRobot with Will Smith? We need to raise soldiers. So becoming, terrified overthinkers, we should throw that word away and basically saying that we need to, and other thing I want to say as well, autism has also been something that's big on the spectrum, and that has caused a lot of parents and younger generations to be scared of certain things like vaccines and all that. And you can go down the rabbit hole with that, but I won't go into it. But we need to stop the soft, gentle parenting and get these children to be more stronger, harder, and understanding on what's right from wrong.
Fight the power. I also think there's a trade-off with that. I feel like because we were coming from a society that struggled, we were coming from parents that had to work multiple jobs to pay the bills. We came from places where struggle was considered a badge of honor, and now we realize that that's not really life. Your life shouldn't be a struggle. Your life shouldn't be always trying to find a way to make sure you pay the bills. And I feel like because we've removed some of those barriers of struggle, we allow kids to feel. We allow kids to understand. We allow kids to truly dive deep into their feelings. When we were kids, I couldn't feel. I couldn't tell my parents how I felt. They're like, shut up, just do what you're supposed to do. But now having kids that are grown-ups, I can see how our parenting allowed our kids to be the realest versions of themselves rather than carrying all this baggage that we put on them as parents. So although they may be softer, I feel like they're the closest thing to caring, compassionate humans that we've seen generationally for a very long time.
I agree. They feel too much. Like we're saying they are overthinking everything. And yes, of course, with the whole like cancel culture and the politically correct thing like to do, they are overthinking everything. And I think we as adults, like I was fully grown when social media was introduced in my life. And I still overthink so much, and I'm so overstimulated. Like before this, like there wasn't a camera in my face, so I wasn't like, oh my God, if I say this, like what's gonna happen? Or like, what if I like say an opinion that's maybe like something that's a little controversial? But now I'm overthinking everything. So I'm not a mother, like but I have worked with kids, and I do see the difference. Like it is true, they gentle parent, and I try not to as a coach. Like I try that I'm going to treat all the kids the same. And even if you're being gentle parented at home, keep that at home. Like I'm not going to do that here. Like you're going to go out there, you're going to compete, like participation trophies. Like that's not a thing. Like it hasn't been. And like growing up, I'm so thankful that it hasn't been because it's made me want to work hard for what I achieve, And yes, like there was struggle. Like I'm a first generation immigrant. Like I know that there has been so much struggle, but it's made me the better person. Like it's built character in me. And I don't know. I mean, the kids of today, I just feel so bad for them because they're just constantly thinking about everything. They have so many things thrown at them, so many different like social media platforms telling them what to do. Like, it's just, I don't know how they're growing up in this world. Like, I feel so sad. Hi, I'm Manraj, and I was saying that kids are being raised as overthinkers. I do think that we are raising kinder kids. I don't think that we're getting any less or more kinder, but I do believe that they are becoming overthinkers, and I agree that we shouldn't have to go through struggle to build character. But I just think that it helps in some way to fight for what you want. So yeah, like I feel like we are still raising overthinkers, but of course every parent wants their kid to have a better life than they did. That's what we fight for. That's what we work for. That's what my parents, like, that's why they came to Canada. Like, you know, they wanted us to have a better life here. So yes, gentle parent your kid. I obviously, like, you know, we got physically assaulted by our parents doesn't mean that our kids have to. That's okay, you know what I mean? We can go without it. But I just think that, yeah, we need to tell kids what's right and wrong. Like, we can't leave everything up to media or like teachers or, you know, schools, because they are being bombarded with information. I'm being bombarded. I learned how to critically think through my education, but if I hadn't, I don't know if I would have an opinion on anything. I wouldn't be on this show, you know what I mean? Like, I would just overthink everything. I would be like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, or like, I don't know if I'm even allowed to have an opinion on it in private. So yeah, tell your kids what's right and wrong and let them have their own individuality, let them have their own opinion. Don't let them be influenced by the world around them too much. And also, kids, go play outside, please. Stop playing video games.
I feel like we're conflating two things. I think the ability to be soft and be kind is not, it doesn't make them weak. I feel like it gives them a way of looking at the world that we desperately, really, really need. Like, the way I have a 23-year-old and a 17-year-old, and they're willing to fight for everybody. They don't see people as a crutch or a baggage or as someone that they have to carry along or bring along with them. They see everybody deserves to feel like they're accepted, they're wanted, they're loved, they're valued. And I feel like what we've done is, because we pulled off those struggle markers off of their lives, it gives them the opportunity to really be human.
Personally, I don't think that our generation, I mean, I feel our generation, the newer kids coming in now, are kind, but I wouldn't say they're more kind than the generations before us. I think, yes, beforehand, people couldn't vocalize their feelings or their thoughts or be as vulnerable in that sense, but I don't think that made them any less kind as people, at least in my experience. I'll say I am a huge overthinker. Like, I was nervous to come here today. Just because of, I feel like even mild opinions can get you canceled, or just put you in a position where it's not fun. So I understand from that perspective. I'm 20 years old, so maybe I'm the baby here, but I overthink everything. I feel like I need approval for like so many things in my life, where I'm trying to find that balance where, no, okay, I'm an adult, like this is what I can and can't stand for, and this is what I believe in. But yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of overthinking in this generation.
So I haven't raised anyone. I was raised, but I do feel like kind of being able to overthink things is in a bit of like a privilege in itself. Because when I think about my grandparents' generation, my parents' generation, and even like, and especially like generation which came like before my grandparents, they all had to face immense struggles. You know, children dying in infancy, like in batches, wars. You know, my parents were born in USSR, and they were like in their early 20s. Like, wow, the country I lived in stopped existing, right? So, and it is very hard. And now I feel like I'm the first generation in like a long time which was able to kind of have a more relaxed, soft, and stable life. Like, I don't have to fight for survival that much, which allows me to have this more, I don't want to say like deeper emotions, but in a way like more like, not just like, oh, I have to go every day and, you know, make money and support my family and support my parents and support my children and stuff like that. But I can actually pursue my passions. I can maybe delay some things in my life for a little bit while I feel like more ready for it, rather than do it right now. So I feel like it's almost like a trade-off. Like, we do have better life, and like I hope generation which comes after will also have a better life than I have. So it almost feels like a trade-off, you know. And maybe it's not like a bad thing right now. You know, it's just better in a way.
Hey, it is Katrina, and I just wanted to say, coming back on Raphael's point as well, overthinking is a privilege, which I do agree as well. But also at the same time, we are in a generation where we have these new generations that are growing up with social media in their face, thinking like, hey, I can make $1 million on OnlyFans, and this is going to be easy for me, and I'm never going to struggle. But we are also raising a generation of overthinkers, because we have one part over here thinking that life is so easy, I can make money online. And then we have another part over here that's overthinking about certain things. Am I going to get canceled if I say this, if I say that? And I just think like gentle parenting is a thing. but also it's the point of the parents that are raising these children. So another piggybacking off of what I had said originally, that it's up to the parent to raise a child a certain way so that they can think correctly rather than looking at social media or looking at people that are of influence and thinking that is the right direction to go. So yes, struggle creates personality, but I think that parents or guardians of these children play a very big role for these children's lives.
I think you'd made a really good point in previous question. Like, you know, I'm just going to copy his answer. Actions have consequences, you know? So, yeah, free speech. If you're going to say something, you better be ready for what comes for you after.
Yeah, I don't think it's free speech if people are going to try and cancel you for it. I feel like you should be able to say as you choose, if we have it as a chartered right in law. But again, that doesn't free you from consequence. You can say what you want. If you come onto the streets and, you know, say some foul stuff and you get punched in the mouth, that is your fault.
Wow. I mean, I have the right to dress however I want. And if if I'm going to events, if I'm a celebrity and I start dressing poorly, like maybe I stop getting invited to events. That doesn't mean my like right to dress however I want has been taken away, but like taste, discretion, all of these things are part of free speech, and we're allowed to, again, have a reaction to the action. And it doesn't mean that free speech has been taken away. It just means that like we have opinions about your speech and we're going to act on them.
For sure, you can act on it, but canceling somebody or the idea of canceling somebody because they speak a certain way, I feel like we don't really do that, because if we did, then we wouldn't have a rapist as the president of the largest military in the world. We don't really do that. So I feel like free speech is going to go on unabated. I don't think people have the courage to call out things that matter when it comes to free speech. You see people, influencers, we'll call them, on social media all the time saying the most foul stuff, doing the most foul things. And people say, oh, well, now they're canceled, but their viewership skyrockets. There's this person named Lily Gaddis, who's a absolute race baiting maniac, who says the most foul stuff. And she continues to say the most foul stuff and gets promoted and supported because she agitates, she pushes the right buttons and pisses people off. And people can claim to cancel them, but the only people that are canceling them are the people that never liked her to begin with. So I think free speech will continue on that way. But again, I want to say, if you see me saying this, don't come at me trying to promote your free speech rights and expect me to stand there and be like, okay, say what you want, I'm not going to say anything back.
Yeah, I feel like free speech is a right, but we learned in like grade 10 very early in social justice class that your right is your right unless you're stepping on another person's right. So the moment you're saying hurtful things or like racist remark or sexist remarks, then yeah, you're gonna have consequences and you have to be ready to accept them, because your right does not trump another person's right to peacefully exist. So I feel like we use free speech way too freely. Like, just because you have a tongue in your mouth doesn't need to, you need to like be constantly using it. You know what I mean? Use it to stand up for someone, use it to defend someone, does not mean you act entitled. I keep going back to comedy because I feel like I've been so saddened by how it's been taken over by like hecklers or whatever. Like, I just feel like that's where you cross boundaries. That's where you test the waters. You know what I mean? That's where you say things. And as long as you can say it in a way that's not clearly targeting somebody, not clearly targeting a minority, or targeting like a race or gender or whatever, then you're allowed to say it. But you cannot say it without consequences or without the fear of being canceled. Like, you have to watch out for what you say. You can't go around hurting people just because you have a mouth and you can talk.
Every time people mention free speech, I always think of this very famous tweet, which is says something like, Twitter is the only social media in the world where you can say, I love pancakes, and another person will go, oh, you hate waffles. So I do feel like it's such a huge diapason, like such a huge spectrum of what people get canceled for. Because sometimes you see this like very big, bold statements of, oh, this person is homophobic. And then you know, and you're like, oh my God, what happened? And you like look up at it, and apparently the initial reason is, oh, this person just doesn't like Troye Sivan music or something like that. And you're like, okay. And you're like, okay, that's a bit of an overreach, you know. I like Troye Sivan, just FYI. I just want to put it out there. So I feel like, yes, sometimes people get, you know, canceled for actual legitimate things, but sometimes it's just like something, you know, such a reach that it almost doesn't make sense. So I feel like saying like, oh, it's a free speech if you get canceled for something, it's a bit of like there is nuance, you have to think about it.
One last thing. When it comes to freedom of speech, I feel like when people try to police freedom of speech, you're doing yourself a disservice, because if you want to police someone's freedom of speech that you don't agree with, then that same thing is going to happen to you on the other side with people that don't agree with your idea of freedom of speech, and they start policing the things that you think and you say. It's not going to work if you think that only your side can say the things that they want to say, but the other side can't say the things that they want to say. We have to accept freedom of speech from all sides, whether we like it, dislike it, whatever it might be. Otherwise, we end up policing ourselves and limiting our own ability to say the things we want to say.
Hey, it's Kelly. I was arguing for free speech still being free, even if you get canceled. And that was a tough one because like many people spoke to throughout these conversations, cancel culture isn't a tangible thing. And so it's like, are people actually getting canceled? For the most part, no. A lot of comedians people have tried to cancel, and Netflix keeps giving them deals. And so it's those murky waters, and it's hard to argue one way or another without having a larger conversation of what it means to cancel someone. But I think I would actually be against. I don't think it's free speech if you get canceled. And again, how are we creating a society where we can have conversations and where we can integrate things instead of just punishing people? When we try to cancel them, it's similar to our prison, our so-called justice system, where you just like lock people away, and that actually doesn't rehabilitate people. So finding a way to create integration, I think, is really the pathway forward, because it's not free speech if you're getting canceled for it. Final thoughts? This was super fun. I was so glad to take part, and it was really interesting having to argue opinions that I wouldn't normally argue. It made me have to stretch and reach and dig deep into myself and to see things from another perspective. Ultimately, I don't think things are for or against. I think everything is a spectrum of, not everything, but most things. So yeah, but it was really nice to be able to take that standpoint and to try to see from the other side. And ultimately, it deepened my perspective and opened my mind.
Hi, it is Katrina, and here are my final thoughts. I thought that today was absolutely great. You know, coming in here, I didn't know what I was expecting. I didn't know what opinions or thoughts or debates or arguments we were going to be speaking about, but I think it did open my mind to a lot of things that I probably didn't have much knowledge of, especially like how, as I mentioned, I am a new mom. So it gives me the perspective of other people's point of views and what they think with our society and our culture and our community. But other than that, we had an amazing team that I got to be and spend my Sunday morning with. I wouldn't pick anyone else because everyone had their own opinions and thoughts, and it's cool to meet people from different communities. But yeah, my final thoughts were it opened up my mind to certain things, and I can't wait to come on and do another one of these.
I'm Manraj, and my final thoughts are that I hope that we learned that everything is a grayscale, that there is no black and white. And I think it's so important for us to have conversations like this. It's so important to have spaces like this. There was this beer commercial that we were watching in class. I know the brand, but they didn't sponsor, so I'm not going to take the name. But they just sat around and they just talked about these like very hard topics, and they all in the end were agreeing. And even us, like most of the time we were just nodding on the other point of view as well. But all these debates that we see on social media, they're very targeted. They start being like, personally attacking each other. But this hopefully shows that we are able to have civil conversation, and that we have so much in like similar. We are so similar as human beings, and that we all value pretty much similar things, and we all just want us to be happy. We want everyone else to be happy. We want our kids to be happy. We want a good, peaceful world. So I hope we can take steps to working towards that, more inclusivity, more representation, all of that. I just wanted to preach. So thanks.
Hi, Rafael is here again for the last time. I just wanted to say it was a very interesting debate, and it was very valuable to like kind of listen to different opinions of all our participants who come from different paths of life, you know, different social groups, different ages as well. For me, it was definitely just showed how uneducated on a lot of the stuff I am. I feel like sometimes even like if I thought something was right, but I couldn't find any evidence from top of my head or even from bottom of it, I guess, as well, about how to support it, or sometimes like something other person said that I was like, I think it might be incorrect, but I also don't know how to dispute it. So I definitely feel like I should be more educated about a lot of topics, and I think in this sense it was very valuable for me. And you know, I would love to come here again, just saying. But yeah. And thank you so much for our production team as well. Experience was amazing. It's been very welcome atmosphere. I was very nervous before I came, but it was great.
Yo, first, huge shout out to Shades of YVR for putting this on. Big shout out to Quwam for bringing everybody together. The two cameramen that don't get any love in the background. You guys did a great job. Final thoughts from me. I feel like this is a great conversation because it forces you to take positions you may not actually think about, or you may not even consider unless you were given the for and against sign. And big props on creating content that's not fueled by rage bait. I feel like every one of these kind of programs, they fuel themselves on rage bait, people yelling, screaming, being terrible to each other. And this really gave us an idea to have conversations without fueling that kind of chaos and fueling that kind of narrative, that we can all be in a room, have disagreements, and actually still be able to laugh and joke and like each other when we leave. So huge shout out to that. And before I leave, just gotta say, free all oppressed peoples everywhere. Palestine, Congo, indigenous people in Canada, Sudan, wherever people are oppressed. We need to do more to make sure that we push the message forward so that the world can be an equitable place for everybody. Peace, y'all.
Hello, it's Devaney Jasmine back for my final thoughts. Today was really eye-opening. I felt like I learned so much, and I really appreciated how everyone was so kind, gentle, and civil when talking. I mean, debating can get heated, as we all know. But yeah, no, everyone was really, really awesome. The crew was awesome, and initially I came in a little nervous, but now I'm like chill. I'm really chill, so thanks.